Welcome, folks, to Crypto News Global. I'm your host, Nick Toka, and Bitcoin is a pumping today. Trump puts a pause on global tariffs except for China, and everything is way up. Bitcoin's currently up 10%. I see XRP up 17%. The whole market in the green, and the whole traditional financial market up as well. On today's show, Bitcoin jumps to 82,000 as Trump announces 90-day pause on tariffs except China. Bitcoin-backed loans are going to get way cheaper around the globe, Ledn co-founder says. And Trump administration wants to weaken dollar, and that's positive news for Bitcoin. All this and so much more on today's show. Welcome, folks, to Crypto News Global. I'm your host, Nick Toka, and Bitcoin in the green, everything in the green. When we look at the charts in a moment, I don't know if we're going to see anything at all in the red. So a good day, even though we suspected that Jerome Powell was going to reduce interest rates today or tomorrow. This came even before that. Interestingly enough, Trump had a signal to buy, apparently, with just before he announced that he was going to remove these tariffs. So very, very interesting. Let's get into our market watch and Bitcoin technical analysis. The BITI, as noted, up 10%, 82,379. Ethereum up 16%, 1634. Solana up 14%, 116 bucks. XRP up, it was up 17% a minute ago, now currently up 16% to $2.01. Cardano up 15%, 61 cents. Doge up 15%, 15 cents. If we get into our crypto bubbles, let's refresh this. It seems to be lagging a bit. There we go. Everything up. Jasmy up 19%, which is the Japanese Bitcoin, they call it. And of course, we know that Japanese officials are actually on their way to the White House as we speak to strike a deal. They've already said that they're going to put zero tariffs on the states, and they want to create a trade balance instead of imbalance. So those, whatever they want. So they're sending a whole team over there to the Pentagon to talk to Trump. Fartcoin up 50%. Everything in the green. We've got Sonic up 25%. Pendle 24%. Doge 14%. You name it, 100% in the green right now for the day. For the week, we have Fartcoin up 73%, Jasmy up 11%. Most things in the red, about a 70-30 split for the week. And if we zoom out to the monthly, we've got, again, about a, we'll call it a 60-40 split. Actually, we'll call it a 50-50 split, with Fartcoin up 238%. Wow. Total market cap for Bitcoin right now is $1,600,000,000. Ethereum $197 billion. XRP $117 billion. Solana $60 billion. Doge $23 billion. Tron $22 billion. Cardano $21.8 billion. Total market cap is sitting at $2.58 trillion, with Bitcoin holding 63.5% of that. Ethereum 7.6%, XRP 4.6%. Currently sitting in 39 in fear in our crypto fear and greed index. Yesterday was an extreme fear at 18, and last week 25 in fear. There are 1,099 days left until the next Bitcoin halving in 2028, and 158,292 blocks left to mine until that time. Assets by market cap, we have gold at $20.7 trillion, Apple just under $3 trillion, back way up 15%. Microsoft, 2.9 trillion, up 10%. Nvidia up 19%, 2.8 trillion. Amazon, 2 trillion. Google, 1.9 trillion. Silver, 1.7. Biddy has moved ahead of Saudi Aramco. Now Biddy is in the 8th position, 1.645 trillion. Saudi Aramco, 1.634. And Facebook, 1.484 trillion. You can currently get 1,215 Satoshis for one fiat US dollar. The current U.S. national debt is sitting at $36,705 billion, equaling $107,306 per U.S. taxpayer, or $323,049 per. This amount is per taxpayer. The first amount, $107,306, is per citizen. The Doge clock shows us that they have saved exactly $300 billion, which equals to $2,667 per U.S. citizen. A nice chunk for about 3 months' work. Almost exactly, just under 3 months' work. Interesting. So Bitcoin jumps to 82,000 and a bit right now as Trump announces 90-day pause on tariffs, except China. Crypto and stock prices have surged in the past hour after U.S. President Donald Trump announced a 90-day pause on tariffs on multiple nations except China. The flagship crypto now eyes the 83,000 barrier after jumping 6% following the news. It's up 10% as we speak. But still, there's that 83,000 barrier, currently at 82.5K. In a Truth Social post, President Trump announced that he was raising China's tariffs to 125% effective immediately due to a lack of respect showing to the world's markets. This move follows China's recently announced reciprocal 84% tariff rate on U.S. goods starting April 10th. Based on the lack of respect that China has shown to the world markets, I am hereby raising the tariff charged to China by the United States of America to 125%, effectively immediately. At some point, hopefully in the near future, China will realize that the days of ripping off the USA and other countries is no longer sustainable or acceptable, Trump explained. In a Wednesday post, the U.S. president also revealed he had authorized a 90-day pause for other countries, as 75 nations reached out to multiple U.S. representatives, including the Department of Commerce, Treasury, and the U.S. Trade Representative, to negotiate a solution to the subjects being discussed relative to trade barriers, tariffs, currency manipulation, and non-monetary tariffs. Additionally, he authorized an immediate, substantially lowered reciprocal tariff of 10% during the 90-day pause. In a second post, the president stated, "This is a great time to buy." This is what I was saying. He sent out a post, "Great time to buy the dip," which I hope all my viewers have been doing over the past couple of days. Following the news, stock prices surged, with the S&P 500 surging around 6% since the announcement. Meanwhile, the crypto market saw its total market capitalization jump around 5%. With assets like Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, and Solana increasing 6 to 12% in an hour. The flagship crypto climbed from 76 to 82, momentarily reclaiming this level for the first time since Sunday. Its 6% surge has sparked optimism among investors who saw Bitcoin fall to a 5-month low over the weekend. Yeah, so big news. That is the big news. The markets are following every word Trump says, up or down. It's very, very interesting. Everything now is not based on fundamentals. Everything is based on the word of the U.S. government, it seems. specifically with tariffs. So it shows you what exactly is the U.S. stock market actually worth, right? If it was worth what's on paper, Apple worth this much money, then wouldn't it have sustained that much money? But in reality, all these stocks are running at, 25 to even 150 price to earnings ratios. So maybe it was a time for a pullback regardless, because these companies were well overvalued. What will be happening soon, and we have seen a few of these starting already, and that is Bitcoin-backed loans. And Bitcoin-backed loans are going to get way cheaper around the globe. Ledn co-founder says the Bitcoin lending market will get much more competitive in coming years, and that is good for consumers. There's the co-founder, Maurizio Di Bartolomeo and Adam Reeds. The Trump administration's friendliness toward crypto sector is going to deeply change the Bitcoin lending market over the next 4 years. That's according to Maurizio Di Bartolomeo, co-founder of Ledn, a firm that specializes in providing digital asset loans. You're going to see a Cambrian explosion of Bitcoin-backed loans because the rates are going to drop to a point that is going to make them competitive with home equity and personal lines of credit or other types of investments. Di Bartolomeo told CoinDesk in an interview. The kicker, he said, is that these rates will drop not just in the U.S., but for countries all around the globe, thanks to Bitcoin's nature as a digital asset. Gold in a vault in Switzerland is not gold in a vault in Venezuela, but Bitcoin in Colombia is Bitcoin in Madrid, is Bitcoin anywhere in the world. As an underwriter, I have a uniform collateral, Di Bartolomeo said. In practice, this means that investors from developing countries who may not have the same kind of efficient financing opportunities as people in Western nations will soon have a way to access what Di Bartolomeo calls world-class financing at fair rates. That's because big banks are finally ready to wade into crypto lending now that the U.S. Securities Exchange Commission has rescinded SAB 121, a controversial accounting rule that made it prohibitive for firms to custody crypto assets. Historically, a few players have offered crypto lending services in the U.S., which has made the space relatively uncompetitive, according to Di Bartolomeo. It's a seller's market right now. We are lending out dollars fully centralized at north of 12.5%, with zero losses over 7 years. Banks are going to look at this and say, wow, this is a great rate of return. One bank will come in with 12% interest, another will do 10, another says 9. So this is going to compress and compress, he said. It will really benefit the consumer. Lending Bitcoin. Born and raised in Venezuela, Di Bartolomeo entered the crypto sphere in 2014. Back then, the country was reeling from hyperinflation and Nicolas Maduro's ascent to power. While most of Di Bartolomeo's friends were focused on emigrating, his brother was benefiting from Bitcoin mining thanks to the nation's cheap energy. Family got into the business, then other acquaintances, but they were confronted with the issue of financing their operation. A single mining rig can cost thousands of dollars. Bitcoin miners residing in Canada also had the same issue. Di Bartolomeo, who studied in Ontario, Canada, discovered. That's what pushed him to launch Ledn in 2018 with co-founder Adam Reed. Miners had fees and expenses, and their revenue was in Bitcoin. They wanted to keep a lot of their treasury as Bitcoin because of how well it was doing. They needed a tool that helped them keep their Bitcoin while giving them the fiat they needed to pay things out. Fast forward to 2025, and Ledn's client now have access to products that include Bitcoin loans, Bitcoin yield accounts, stablecoin growth accounts, and Ether-backed loans. a basic wealth management toolkit, according to DiBartolomeo. The loans also provide a tax-efficient way of obtaining liquidity. Customers include high net worth individuals that were early to Bitcoin, businesses, and funds. Ledn has issued $9 billion in loans since inception. Though it's based in Canada, Ledn was one of the first lending companies to offer services in Spanish, which allowed the firm to establish a market in countries like Mexico, Colombia, Venezuela, and Spain, while other lenders, BlockFi, Voyager, Celsius, Genesis, were pushing to capture the U.S. market. When these lenders were wiped out in 2022, Ledn was one of the only firms left standing, and it grew in the U.S. organically. Very cool. So we're seeing some small players, which aren't that small, lent out $9 billion, I think it said here a minute ago. But starting from very humble beginnings, started just by mining in a hyperinflationary Venezuela a few years ago, early, and built up this company. Was able to, I guess, go out to school in Canada and ended up starting out this company, and they are doing well. $9 billion in loans since inception. That's some good interest if they're loaning it out at what they're saying is, even if it's 5%, right? Quite a return. So they are doing okay, and it's good to see that other players are entering the market, which is going to give more competition and lower rates, as they say in their article. So amazing news that is. Another good piece of news, and we've talked about this quite a bit, how part of this whole tariff scheme was to lower the cost of the US dollar. So the idea is that a lower dollar will promote more trade with the US. Additionally, it's known that over 50% of the global debt, and there's a hell of a lot of debt, folks. And I'm not talking about your debt at the local credit card company. I'm talking about nation, state, country debts. Over half of it is in US dollars. So it makes sense to have a lower US dollar. This includes the states, of course, who has all this US debt too, right? But if there's a lower US dollar compared to other countries, let's say the euro, for example, then it's going to be easier for the Europeans to pay down their debt because it's, at a discount. So it would help in trade. It would help because it would promote more trade if there's a lower dollar. Again, going with the Europeans or any other country in the world, really. It makes things cheaper. So more people are going to do trade with the States if the dollar is cheap. If the dollar was, 20% cheaper, well, then all their goods, compared to the euro, for example, are 20% cheaper. So lower dollar, more trade, promotion, and cheaper to pay down debt for the global community. So the Trump administration wants a weaker dollar that is positive for Bitcoin. The asset manager said it was sticking to its 2025 year-end Bitcoin price target of 200,000. That's per Bitwise. President Trump's administration wants a weaker dollar, and that's bullish for Bitcoin. Asset manager Bitwise said in a report Tuesday. When it comes to the tariff push, the thing I'm most certain of is this. The Trump administration wants a significantly weaker dollar, wrote Matt Hogan, chief investment officer at Bitwise. After a week of market turmoil, cryptocurrency surged on Wednesdays following Trump's announcement. We know that. A weaker dollar has significant implications for Bitcoin. Bitwise notes that over the last 5 years, the cryptocurrency has had a negative correlation to the US dollar. When the dollar falls, Bitcoin rises, and when Bitwise said it expects this relationship to continue in the short term. The longer-term implications of a weaker dollar are even more positive, the report said. A shakeup in the global macro system creates an opportunity for new reserves assets to emerge, Hogan wrote. A move away from the US dollar as a single reserve currency to a more fractured system could give hard money such as Bitcoin and gold a larger role to play on the global macro stage, the report added. Bitwise said it was sticking to its year-end Bitcoin price target of $200,000. Yeah, pretty short article, but effectively what they're saying is it's good for Bitcoin, because if a lower US dollar, then it would put gold and other assets like Bitcoin in play as a more widely adopted currency worldwide. And if less people are reliant on the US dollar, then that would mean more people might be reliant on the bitty. It makes sense. But definitely the way they're going for that lower US dollar is how I explained it a few minutes ago. Lower the dollar, the more trade they can promote. And because of this huge debt the world has in US dollars, it'll allow them to pay off the debt faster. Remember, folks, we are always talking about money here. Financial literacy is definitely the way to go. Learn what you can for yourself so you don't have to rely on your local banker who all they really want is your commission and your money. Make no mistake, they're not out for your best interest. They're out for commission. They're out for money. They will suck the pennies and dollars right out from under you if they can, and with no remorse, because these are the guidelines they fall under, right? So do remember that money is abundant and money is everywhere. Take care. Go out. Get your share of the money. For goodness sakes, when it's time to buy the dip, buy the dip. I've been saying that for a couple of weeks now, and I've bought the dip a few times. Every time I buy the dip, I announce it here. It's time to buy the dip. Look, but time is the scarce thing, so be smart. Use your time wisely. When I say that, I mean, use your time to expand your mind. That's what I mean. Read books, informative things. I've got a very good list of books that'll help you with financial literacy in my comments at all times. They're all free. They're all, I've got links to the actual videos of the entire book free on YouTube, and I also have links to the author if you want to actually purchase the book. But use your time wisely. Listen to these books in the car. Listen to them on your spare time. Listen to them if you're on the crapper. There's lots of time that people spend wasting, and with that same amount of time, you can expand your mind, right? Guys, always start saving money and start saving when you're young. Try and always stay on the positive. These are more basics here that you really want to do. Save more money than you spend. If you suddenly start making more money, don't start spending more money. Start saving more money, and start saving and investing when you're young, ideally in your teens, early 20s, and hopefully you can retire when you're in your 40s or your early 40s, 45, something along these lines. Folks, it would be great if you were able to subscribe to this podcast. It seems that only a small portion of the watchers are subscribers. It would be great helping me get into the next level here of having over 500 to 1,000 subscribers by the end of this year. I promise I will keep finding the latest, newest, and most bullish Bitcoin stories in an unbiased fashion for everybody, so you don't have to scour the internet. I'm going to do it on your behalf. So if you like what you've heard, please comment, subscribe. It will help greatly with the algorithms, and we will see you on the next stream. Folks, thanks so much for joining.